Clark, did you turn down $15 million? Oh, that's a boss move. Oh, that's a crazy.
Okay, this is wild. The WNBA just made the biggest play in their history, tossing $50 million on the table for Caitlin Clark. But guess what? She hit them with a hard no thanks. Yeah, you heard that right. She's not here for the drama, the politics, or any empty promises. Caitlin knows her value, and she definitely won't be silenced just for cash. But the real question is, do you think she made the right move by walking away from that much money? Stick around, because this story gets absolutely crazy.
You get a lot of people in foul trouble with how physical she is.
Sun turn it over for a fifth time.
Let's break down this so-called historic $50 million offer. The league's big shots practically paraded it around, acting like a huge check for Caitlin Clark would magically fix all the problems they've created. They genuinely believed this massive payday would silence critics, erase years of blunders, and lock her into a league that hasn't even bothered to protect her on the court. But here's the kicker. Caitlin Clark didn't even flinch. She knows a shiny number doesn't change what's actually real.
Walks there to the stanchion.
What's the reality then? This league has repeatedly proven they either can't or won't protect their absolute biggest star. The same fans who are filling arenas, snatching up her jerseys, and tuning in every game have watched her take brutal hit after brutal hit with almost zero accountability from officials or league leadership. And now, after all that, the commissioner suddenly waves $50 million in front of her face, expecting everything to just be fine. Not a chance. Just think about what Caitlin's been through in barely 2 seasons. She hasn't even had a moment to breathe as a pro before being thrown into non-stop drama. We've seen the assaults stack up, one after another, starting with that infamous cheap shot from Bree that got completely brushed off.
Fouled out, had 6, and it was the ticky-tack fouls, and again, Caitlin Clark.
And get this, Sophie Cunningham goes full-on linebacker on her. Lexi Hall collides with her, almost ending her season, and what happens? It's all just part of the game. Meanwhile, Caitlin is the one left on the floor, battered and bruised, while the refs conveniently swallow their whistles and the commentators act like it's no big deal. Let me break this down for you. That's not basketball. That's a blatant setup for serious injuries.
Listen, I understand. You got Nike deals, you got freaking PGA Golf Tour, Live Golf Tour, you got hockey sponsor. I know you got a lot going on, but to turn down.
But wait, it didn't just stop with the physical stuff. Oh no, there's also the messy politics. Remember Britney's constant shade and those blatant racial undertones that started flying around the moment Caitlin became the actual face of the league? Instead of celebrating her incredible impact on ratings, ticket sales, and the league's overall relevance, certain players and media voices chose to play the race card, creating massive division instead of unity. Caitlin didn't ask for the spotlight. Her sheer talent and undeniable impact earned it all on their own. But instead of rallying behind her, parts of the league just turned completely hostile. Now let's layer all of that on top of the fact that the league itself has been seriously struggling with its credibility. The officials can't seem to call games consistently to save their lives. Star players are throwing elbows, grabbing jerseys, and flat out assaulting Caitlin, yet suspensions or fines. Those are super rare, if they ever even happen. Fans see it, broadcasters see it, and what's even more insane, Caitlin herself sees all of it. So, when the commissioner casually drops a $50 million contract on her desk, you can probably guess her reaction, right? It wasn't gratitude, it was pure suspicion. She's thinking, hold on a second, where was all this energy when I was getting hacked every single game? The WNBA seriously underestimated Caitlin Clark. They literally assumed she'd just take the money, flash a smile for the cameras, and keep her mouth shut. But here's the kicker. Caitlin is not desperate. She's got massive endorsement deals with Nike, Gatorade, Panini, Wilson, and now Stanley. She doesn't need the WNBA's hush money. In fact, she makes more off the court than most players in the league combined. That $50 million might sound like a dream to others, but for Caitlin, it's pure leverage. It's concrete proof the league knows they can't survive without her, and she's using that power to finally call them out. And if that wasn't enough, think about how this offer looks to the rest of the league. How many veterans have been grinding for a decade, never even seeing half that money? Suddenly, Caitlin Clark bursts onto the scene, doubles ratings, packs stadiums, and gets offered $50 million. You can absolutely imagine the resentment just bubbling behind the scenes. That's exactly why the league was so desperate to fast-track this deal. They wanted to keep her happy enough to ignore all that tension. But Caitlin isn't stupid. She saw the entire setup. The very players complaining about her spotlight are the exact ones who would scream unfair the second she signed that check. So Caitlin turned it down, and by doing that, she exposed everything. She exposed the commissioner's absolute desperation. She exposed the blatant hypocrisy of players who totally benefit from her massive draw while still attacking her at every single turn. She exposed the refereeing failures that let brutal assaults slide, simply because the victim was Caitlin Clark. And most shockingly of all, she exposed how incredibly fragile the WNBA's entire foundation truly is. But wait, let's break this down even further. Remember the Sophie Cunningham incident? That wasn't just some hard foul, that was raw frustration exploding into outright aggression. And how did the league respond? They literally just shrugged it off. No suspension, no fine worth even talking about. And trust me, fans noticed. Social media absolutely exploded with clips of Caitlin being thrown around like a rag doll, while officials casually jogged away. What blew my mind was, that's not basketball. That's pure negligence, and now they actually expect her to trust them with a long-term deal after all that. Then you pile on the Lexi Hall collision, which almost took Caitlin out of the game again. Honestly, this is not a good look. Sure, basketball is physical, and yes, contact happens, but when these kinds of incidents just keep stacking up against one specific player who just has to be the league's biggest superstar, people start asking some serious questions. Is it just pure incompetence? Is it a blatant bias? Or is it something way uglier? Caitlin doesn't even have to say a word. Her millions of fans are already connecting all the dots. But here's the real kicker, the part that blows my mind. Caitlin doesn't even have to threaten to leave. The mere thought of it absolutely terrifies the entire league. Just imagine the WNBA without her, picture broadcasts without her iconic logo threes, her skyrocketing jersey sales, her constant headlines. Attendance would plummet, ratings would drop off a cliff, merchandise would sit untouched, and sponsorships would just vanish. That $50 million offer? It wasn't some act of generosity, it was pure insurance. Insurance against the league completely collapsing under its own mismanagement. But Caitlin's way smarter than that. She knows taking their deal would only shackle her name to their epic failure. It would make her complicit in a system that has disrespected and endangered her from day one. She doesn't need them. They desperately need her. And her rejection just made that crystal clear for everyone. Okay, this is where it gets crazy. The second news broke that Caitlin Clark had rejected that $50 million offer, the internet went absolutely nuclear. Fans were in disbelief. Some called her crazy, others called her fearless. But one thing's for sure, nobody stayed quiet. Twitter, or X, whatever you call it, exploded with highlight clips, memes, and scorching hot takes. One group argued she should have just taken the money and secured her future. The other, they saw it as arguably the boldest move in modern sports, concrete proof she can't be bought, not even by her own league. And honestly, can you really blame her for that? You see, Caitlin Clark doesn't move like some desperate athlete just clinging to a paycheck. She's not here simply to get paid. She's already raking in millions from endorsement deals that absolutely dwarf typical WNBA salaries. She's plastered on billboards, starring in commercials, gracing magazine covers. She's selling sneakers and those Stanley Cups faster than stores can even stock them. That's not just money, that's real power, real influence. And that's exactly why rejecting $50 million stings the league so incredibly badly. It proves she's way bigger than their highest number. But while fans were going wild online, you could practically feel the panic radiating from inside the WNBA itself. This wasn't just about one deal falling apart, it was about absolute control. The commissioner and all the executives truly believed they had Caitlin locked in. They assumed they could just dangle a shiny check and keep her chained to the league's ongoing chaos. But here's the plot twist. She reminded them that real control doesn't come from contracts. It comes from credibility, and right now the WNBA has exactly zero of that. Let's be super real for a second. This league has allowed Caitlin Clark to endure more punishment than any superstar in recent memory. Remember Bree's dirty shot? Brushed off. Sophie Cunningham's body check? Excused. Lexi Hall's collision, which could have been career-ending, just part of the game. But get this, other players get protection, sympathy, even a biased narrative spin from the media. Caitlyn, she just gets told to toughen up. That blatant double standard isn't lost on her, and it definitely isn't lost on her millions of fans. And then you factor in the racial tensions ignited by Britney's incredibly divisive remarks, framing Caitlyn as a problem instead of the obvious solution. You quickly realize this entire environment has been toxic from day one. So imagine this, the WNBA, the very league that stood completely silent while Clark was relentlessly targeted, now tries to brand her as the face of the future with a contract designed to permanently tie her image to theirs. That's not an opportunity, that's a trap. And Caitlyn knew it by flat out rejecting that offer. She kept her independence. She sent a powerful message. No amount of money can ever erase mistreatment, racism, or pure incompetence. Let's not gloss over the player reaction either, because trust me, plenty of veterans are absolutely seething right now. Think about it. You've been grinding in this league for 10 years, fighting for scraps, and suddenly, Caitlyn Clark shows up and gets offered $50 million after just 2 seasons? Of course, jealousy flares up. Of course, whispers start spreading like wildfire in the locker rooms. And that tension, it would have exploded the second she signed that deal. Caitlyn rejecting the offer might have actually saved the league from its own impending civil war, but it also left those same veterans absolutely furious that the golden child even got the chance in the first place. The resentment is already bubbling, simmering beneath every single elbow thrown her way, and the fans, they might be divided, but they're paying attention like never before. People who never even cared about women's basketball are now suddenly glued to their screens because of Caitlyn Clark. Her games are selling out faster than concert tickets. Her jerseys are outselling entire teams combined. And now, with this epic rejection, even casual sports fans are totally intrigued. They desperately want to know why she turned down life-changing money. They want to know what's really happening behind those closed doors. Suddenly, the WNBA can no longer hide its dysfunction. It's being brutally exposed on the biggest stage imaginable by its brightest star. Media outlets, of course, absolutely jumped all over this story. Some tried to spin it as Caitlyn being ungrateful, even hurting the progress of women's basketball. Others framed it heroically, saying she was standing up to a league that had completely failed to protect her. But honestly, both sides missed the much bigger point. This wasn't just about Caitlyn, this was about power. For decades, players practically begged for better pay, better travel, better treatment. Now, for the first time ever, the WNBA needs a player way more than she needs them. And that player chose not to play along. What blew my mind was, that's a power shift the league was not ready for. So, think about what rejecting $50 million actually means. It means Caitlyn values her freedom, her pristine image, and her rock-solid principles way more than any paycheck. It means she's betting big on herself, her personal brand, and her truly global reach outside of the WNBA. And it means she simply doesn't believe the league can change fast enough to be worth her loyalty. That's not just stubbornness, that's brilliant strategy, because Caitlyn Clark knows her prime years are simply too valuable to waste on broken promises. But hold up, here's where it gets really interesting. Fans immediately started asking, okay, so what's next for Caitlyn? Does she follow in the footsteps of legends like Diana Taurasi, chasing massive contracts overseas in Europe or Asia? Does she lean all in on endorsements, transforming into a global ambassador without the brutal grind of a league schedule? Or does she play the long game, waiting out the WNBA, forcing them to completely rebuild their credibility before she even thinks about returning? The possibilities are absolutely endless, and let me tell you, that uncertainty is absolutely terrifying the commissioner's office. Because let's be totally honest, without Caitlyn Clark, the WNBA completely loses its momentum. Attendance dips hard, sponsorships hesitate big time, and networks stop bidding high for TV rights. The Caitlyn Clark effect has been the single biggest growth driver in league history, and her rejection puts all of that at massive risk. That $50 million offer, it wasn't some act of generosity, it was cold hard insurance. Insurance against the league utterly collapsing under its own gross mismanagement. But Caitlyn's way smarter than that. She knows taking their deal would only shackle her name to their endless failures. It would make her complicit in a system that has utterly disrespected and dangerously endangered her from day one. She doesn't need them. They desperately need her, and her rejection made that absolutely crystal clear. And let's not forget the powerful symbolism here. Turning down $50 million isn't just about the money, it's about deep respect. It's about fundamental safety. It's about being treated as more than just a cash cow. Caitlin Clark didn't just reject a contract, she rejected an entire system. A system that let her get brutally assaulted without consequences. A system that actively allowed racism and jealousy to completely overshadow pure performance. A system that leaned on her for massive ratings while leaving her utterly unprotected on the court. That, my friends, is what she powerfully walked away from. So, where does this monumental decision leave the WNBA? Honestly, they're in absolute chaos. They're now forced to answer some brutally tough questions. Why on earth did they think money alone could erase years of mistreatment? Why did they assume Caitlin would just sell out her core principle? And why are they still ignoring the relentless assaults, the clear bias, and the wildly uneven officiating? Fans aren't stupid. They've seen all the viral clips, they've read every single headline, and they're starting to seriously wonder if the league's leadership is even remotely capable of fixing any of this. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark, she's sitting pretty. Endorsements are absolutely pouring in, social media is buzzing like crazy, and her fans are more loyal than ever. By courageously rejecting that $50 million, she didn't just elevate her status from star to icon. Oh no! She's no longer just the face of the WNBA, she's now the undeniable face of resistance against it. She's living proof that athletes don't have to tolerate disrespect just to get paid. And that, more than anything else, is why this monumental decision truly matters. The WNBA truly thought they had Caitlin Clark cornered, with no way out. Instead, she completely flipped the board, walked away, and left them absolutely scrambling. Now, the question isn't how much money will they finally pay her. It's actually, how long will she let them sweat and panic before she even considers coming back? This isn't just some headline about Caitlin Clark rejecting $50 million. Oh no, this is a massive warning shot. She's powerfully showing the league and the entire world that no amount of cash can ever buy back respect once it's completely lost. So the question now is simple, but absolutely critical. Will the WNBA actually change, or will it simply crumble without her? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive.